Good evening. Welcome. Thank you all for coming along. Couple of little housekeeping things to begin with. And one is, if you're not Irene or myself at this point in time, could you please put yourself on mute so that we can hear everything that Irene has to say tonight. So first of all, yeah, a little bit of housekeeping, the mute thing, and also at the bottom of the screen, we do have the chat box. So if you do have any questions that come up, feel free to pop them into the chat box, and myself or some of the other members of the team will try and help you. And if we can't, we'll pass over to the Oracle and she can answer your questions. Before we actually get started as well, I just wondered if you can pop into the chat box. Does anyone on here tonight not own a Thermomix? Does anyone not own a TM6? Okay, no response. So presuming everyone owns a TM6. Anyway, you can pop in the, oh no, Kelly, you don't, do you? Sorry, and Julie doesn't either. Okay, cool. So just a really quick reminder that we do have a purchase offer on at the moment. Oh, what's happening there? A purchase offer at the moment where when you buy a TM6, you can get access to a second bowl and blade set for $99. It is an amazing, so I don't know where that echo is coming from. It's an amazing offer. It's only until the 8th of this month, unless it's sold out prior. The other thing, little bit of news, is that the TM6 is going to have a price increase in July. We don't know when in July, but at some point in July, it's going to go up in price. Hasn't gone up for 7 years, Thermomix, so you know, it's probably about time. But just giving you that little bit of heads up. Lastly, want to let you know a little bit about the host rewards for June and July. The blade cover is another host reward option, only available if a guest purchases. So coming along to the things like tonight, and I'm going to share with you something that's on Thursday night as well a little bit later. If you bring along a guest and they buy, you get access to host rewards. So the other host rewards are as usual. We've got various thermo servers. The mini thermo server, this is the last month that is available as a host reward. So if you're after those, you know, please get in touch with your consultant and we'll get, you know, and they'll organize a cooking experience with you. But as I was saying, these Zoom things, you bring people along, you qualify as a host, as long as you tell your consultant that you're bringing them. Before I introduce Irene, I just wanted to ask you, have a think about these questions. One, do you like learning about your Thermomix? And as you're here tonight, I guess you probably do. Would a little bit of extra cash help you? So, you know, maybe it's for a holiday, don't we all need one of those? Maybe it's to help with school fees. Maybe it's you're doing a reno, you're saving up for a reno, or maybe it's just something else on your wish list. If that's something that's of interest to you, why not join us tomorrow night? You can get your consultant to share the link with you, but there is what's called a business information session, which is totally obligation free, but it gives you all the information to help you decide whether becoming a consultant is something for you. Now, before I let the rest of you in, we had the members of our team that were on in here just having a general chit chat, and we have so much fun. So, you know, it's a fun thing as well as learning and obviously getting a little more cash. Right, so you're not here to listen to me. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Irene. I'm going to put her on the screen here so you can see her. So this is Irene, and she is delivering the Risotto Masterclass for you. Some of you will no doubt remember her from last year because we did quite a few classes last year, and she is an incredible fount of knowledge. She's been a consultant for 11 years and provides the best customer service. She will no doubt disagree with me when I say she's a perfectionist. However, she's a great foodie and works at a dish until it's the best she can make it. And which is true, yes. True, yeah. She has a massive foodie knowledge base, and she did actually audition for MasterChef a few years ago and got through a few rounds. I think it was just a little bit time consuming. Anyway, as a team, we are extremely grateful to have her with us. We have all learned so much from Irene, and actually feel a little bit emotional because she's fantastic. And I know, as I said, those of you who came across her last year in our classes will know she has so much to share and is so generous with her knowledge. So I'm going to pass over to Irene, and if you have any questions, remember, pop them in the chat. Thanks, Irene. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Mandy, do you want to mute all and then unmute? Just notice there's a few people with speakers that are open.
I'm just trying to find the mute all bit, which I can't see. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yep, got it.
Wonderful. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for coming along. What I do want you to do is, as Mandy said before, there's a chat icon at the bottom of the screen, depending on what device you're using, probably towards the right-hand side on an iPhone. If you can type into the chat box or come off speaker really quickly and just tell us some of the challenges you've had with your risottos. Great if you pop them in the chat box, and I'll try and address some of those as we go through. And also flavour combinations. I want to hear about what sort of combinations of flavours that you're making, what's worked, what hasn't. There's one, goes like glue, okay. We'll have a look at that one. So that to me means there's probably not enough liquid, but we'll go through some of that as we go through it. I'm actually making the mushroom risotto. For those that have, well, in fact, they say you shouldn't put garlic. Someone's putting on there, wife can't have garlic, any substitute. Traditionally in Italian risottos, you don't use garlic, so you can just leave it out, and to be honest, you won't miss it. Mine was really runny and never made it again. Okay, so that's the opposite. So someone who's got too much liquid in there, so we can talk about that as well. So let's focus. I'm going to do the mushroom risotto. The reason I've chosen the mushroom risotto is because it's probably, when you do search for risottos, it actually comes up with mushroom risotto, particularly those that have got a TM5. So if you type in mushroom risotto, that's the most common recipe. And I just use the same recipe. I just alternate the ingredients. So whether I'm doing pumpkin and feta, whether I'm doing asparagus, whether I'm doing pea and mint, in this case, the mushroom. So I use the same basic recipe every time that I use it. So the recipe for the TM6, so those that have made the TM6 recipe, and I'm just going to swap screens so you can actually see that on this other screen here. So when you are looking at the recipes, this one specifically says TM6 mushroom risotto. This specific recipe is very much the Italian style of a risotto. So what I mean by that is it's al dente. So like their pasta, they say, throw it to the wall, it should stick on the wall. Don't do that. I don't recommend it. Too much mess to clean up. It's got quite a bite in it. Now, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm also cooking for mum, and she wants the rice cooked. So that's a matter of cooking for another 2 minutes in your Thermomix. So if you're following the TM6 recipe and you don't like that bite, then you need to cook it for that extra 2 minutes. Now, the other tip with this recipe is because it's using specific amount of water, in the recipe it calls for using the basket. So once you've sauteed the rice and the onion and done all of that, it says to put the basket on top rather than the measuring cup, and allow that to reduce. So if you basically follow that recipe to a T, the lid goes on, the basket goes on to reduce your liquid in the bowl. Now, I'm not a fan of either the al dente texture. I'm also find if you do that and you've got that al dente texture and you want to cook it for another 2 minutes, there's not enough liquid, and then you end up with what I call that super glue texture. Because obviously it's trying to continue to expand as it absorbs that liquid, and it's got no liquid to use in order to absorb into that rice. So you end up with what I call super glue. I'm not a fan of that texture at all. So, so someone's asking, can you use brown instead and soak it prior. I would probably actually half cook it. So if your brown rice, so if you think about your traditional white rice, your traditional white rice probably needs about, I'd say about 15 minutes. Your brown rice can probably cook for nearly 40. So cook it halfway. The risk you run with that obviously is you're rinsing out a lot of that starch, and you're not getting that consistency. So never been a fan of the brown rice in a risotto, but if you're happy not to have too much of that, I guess that creaminess, you can, I guess, substitute by adding butter, but then you're probably, you know, going against, you know, I guess the healthy side of having a nice rice by putting in a mountain of butter to get that creamy texture. Going back up to the top, sorry, just to make sure I don't miss any of these. So next one, I've made the kids apricot chicken one, needed to eat immediately, was trying to batch cook. Yep, so you find that you can't hold on to it. I'll show you how I get around that. I finally used a good risotto rice. It turns out great. Have used the cheap risotto rice and it went gluggy. Really good point. Okay, so let's talk about all the ingredients before I start cooking. So arborio rice, this is the Riviana, I think it's a South Australian brand, doesn't really matter. So it's just an arborio rice that you find at the supermarket, no problem. This rice is fine if you cook it and eat it without storing it straight away. Anyone that's tried to reheat a risotto using cheap rice, it goes really gluey when you try and reheat it. Now, my preference for a really good risotto is something called carnaroli rice. So carnaroli, hopefully you can all see that. This is a Simon Johnson one. You can have a look online. So they talk about quality of rice for risotto. So I've spent a good fortune on cooking classes over the years. So I learned about this at a class with the guy that actually won the Risotto Masters in Italy. And I tell you what, he cooked the most disgusting red wine risotto. It was like had cups and cups of red wine and all I could taste was the red wine. But he also cooked it to that al dente texture, and that's where I understood why they cook it that way. But go back to using the flavors you like. But what I did learn was about rice. So there's two types or three types of rice. There's the arborio rice, there's the carnaroli rice, and there's another rice called Violoni Nano. So these two rices are used, they call them the king of rice in Italy. They hold their shape. So what I love to do, especially with a mushroom risotto or any risotto, is once I've got leftovers, I let them go really, really cold, and then I make arancini balls. So with the arancini balls, you're essentially cooking it a second time, and then potentially a third time if you're freezing them and then reheating them in the oven. What tends to happen with cheap rice is it breaks down, doesn't hold its shape, and goes quite broken. You still want it to hold its texture through those different cooking processes, and that's where the carnaroli rice comes into play. Do I think it tastes better? It's got definitely a creamier texture. It's not something, it's probably about 3 to 4 times the price of your traditional arborio rice. It's not something I would do for a family meal if you're trying to be on a budget. Just use your traditional arborio rice. But certainly if you're entertaining, the carnaroli rice would be great because it's one that you can have in your food warmer and keep, and it'll hold its shape and can be reheated and it won't go gluey, which is really, really nice. So what else have I got here? I'm doing obviously the mushroom risotto. I'm doing it with our vegetable stock. So those that aren't making their vegetable stock paste, please do so. In order to get that umami, is it umami or umami? Maybe someone else can tell me later. But I do it with something called porcini slices. So whenever I'm making a vegetarian dish that I want to boost the flavour of, you want to give it that flavour boost with flavours of umami. So things like tomatoes, mushrooms, anchovies, those sorts of things really give that pungent flavour, that flavour that you keep coming back and wanting to have more and more of. So porcini is that for the risotto. So essentially I buy them whole, and it's the same as spices. I buy everything whole and I grind it down into a powder. And I'll probably do about half a jar and pop that in the fridge, and then I've got it ready to go. That smells like anchovies. Someone referred to it as a stinky socks, but I promise you it really takes your risotto up to another level. So definitely give that a go with all of your vegetarian dishes. Now, if you're happy to use chicken stock with your risotto, that's got a really great base profile as well. So if you go onto our cookie do, there's stock bases for vegetarian, chicken, I think there's fish, prawn, stock bases that you can make. So definitely adds a lot of flavor. Okay, what else have we got in here? Confused about use of the basket. You'll understand when we get to the recipe, so I'll come back to that. Thanks, Mandy, for putting in the rice. She's put in all three. So we've got Violoni Nano, Carnaroli rice, and we've got our arborio rice. Where do you get the porcini mushrooms? Any good Italian or any good deli, really. I bought those from Essential Ingredient at Paran Market. Any market will stock them. Just jump online and do shop around, and they are worth buying in bulk in order to get, I guess, more of a discount. They can be very expensive in those little individual packets, and don't worry about the use by date. As long as you keep them sealed and in a, you know, not in a, I guess, probably even in an airtight container, they'll be fine. Okay, shall we start? Let's start. And then I can talk about some more ingredients as we go. So I might just pop this out of the way. We can take a closer look at the fair mix. I won't worry too much about looking at the recipe. I'll read through it so for everyone's benefit. So the mushroom risotto. So for those that don't have the TM6, it's literally choosing the recipe. You hit start cooking, and it's literally a step-by-step instruction that you walk through and toss the ingredients in. So let me start with my cheese. So I buy block cheese. I've just cut this, I've cubed it. I buy block cheese and I freeze it. It's much, much cheaper. There's no anti-caking agents, obviously, that you find in pre-ground cheese. When I did this last week in our training, that's the cheese that I grated, and that's exactly how it stays. It's very high fat content, so just grate it, pop it into a container, and just pull it out as you need to use it. Now, the recipe calls for 40 grams of cheese. It's never enough. So double it, even 100 grams, won't go to waste, I promise. When you're chopping with the thermix, you learn to start to use your ears when you're cooking. That didn't need the full 10 seconds. And we've got beautifully browned cheese. I'm just going to pop that straight aside. So for those that are buying or still haven't bought, you've got until the 8th of June and get yourself a second bowl and blade set for $99. So I've just popped on my second jug so I can move on with the recipe really, really quickly. Now, really, really important though, for those that don't have a second bowl and blade set, it talks about not only taking the cheese out, but also washing the bowl. Really, really important. What's happened with that cheese is it's caused a fat layer on the bottom of that bowl. So if you're using the TM6 recipe and you don't wash it out, I will guarantee you will end up with black burnt oil, like a film on the base of your bowl. So please follow the instructions. Whenever you're doing a TM6 recipe, follow it to a T, especially when you're using high heat. And this recipe uses the high heat. So clean it. Okay, so my onion. Guys, I don't weigh the onion. I just get a standard onion, chop it into two. Obviously don't use a giant one, you know, otherwise it just has predominantly of onion, but don't worry too much about the 30 grams. Never get bored of how quickly it chops the onions. 11 years is a long time to be making risottos. I've lost count. I reckon I've made at least 1,000 in all those years. Okay, so onions in. Okay, so butter. It's asking for 40 grams. You don't have to use butter. You can use the oil, but don't skip. So what I mean by that is it's asking for 40 grams of butter, 39 grams, not too bad. and it's asking for 40 grams of oil. If you're not going to put the butter, you still need to put in the 80 grams of oil. I'm using olive oil from my wonderful uncle. He's passed away now, which is very sad, but he sends us the most glorious, well, he used to send us the most glorious oil straight from Greece, and how gorgeous that colour is. Very sad. Okay, next. 3 minutes, speed 1. Okay, let's talk about some of the other ingredients that I'm using today. So it's asked, obviously, risotto, wine. I'm using a white wine. You can use a red wine. It will have much more concentration of the tannids from a red wine. I'm using a Sauv Blanc. It really comes back to your preference in terms of sweetness. You could use a Chardonnay. For me, Sauv Blanc's that kind of fine balance between, you know, not too sweet, not too dry. The rule of thumb, though, is if you can't drink it, don't cook with it. It's going to taste disgusting in your food if you can't drink it. So make sure it's a nice wine. I'm not suggesting you buy a $40 bottle of wine, or you could. But if you can't drink it, guys, don't use it. Is there anyone not making veggie stock paste or buying stock cubes? Anyone want to fess up? Anyone not being shown how to do it? No? That's good? Okay. On the sign behind, I've written mushroom risotto and the things that I add to the recipe. So they're obviously not going to be in the recipe. So the porcini powder, promise you, whatever vegetarian dish you make, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a bolognese, the risotto, you're making a soup. That little bit of porcini powder, and I'm talking about, you know, a tablespoon that I'm going to use, will elevate the flavour. So inside your food warmer, and if you don't have a food warmer, guys, it's time to get in touch with your consultant and book in a cooking experience. Now, Victoria, there's no excuse. You can still do a cooking experience exactly the same as what we're doing here. So everyone can zoom in. This counts as a cooking experience to get your hands on a discounted food warmer. So this is really, really important for the risotto. If you don't have one, have a CE. If you don't have one and you still want to make the risotto tomorrow, get yourself a container that holds heat and seals really well. So something that's going to work for you. Have a look in your cupboards, maybe a Corningware or a Pyrex dish, something with a lid. Okay, the recipe doesn't call for any greens. So no parsley, no, I guess, I don't know, spring onion or whatever. I've put spinach leaves up there. So I love to add some additional, I guess, greens into my risotto, a little bit healthier. It's the Greek in me. So I've got some baby spinach here. Now, you don't need to cook this. This is going to wilt really, really well in your thermoserver once you pop your hot risotto over the top. What else could you do? So peas, green beans. You could do, I would say peas, green beans, asparagus. You know, I guess there's lots. You could probably even do lettuce. Lettuce, and that sounds a bit weird, but lettuce cooked is actually quite lovely. We do fricassee, which is a beautiful dish of lamb with lettuce, artichokes. There's one I should do, Mandy, for our cook-off, assuming we ever come out of lockdown. There's a dish they probably never had on Thermomix. Yes. So fricassee. We'll Google it later and see if there's a recipe in there. Okay, so although there's a fair bit of butter and oil in there, they've actually, it's cooked my onions without browning them. So sweating my onions off, nice and clear, ready to go. 3 minutes that was, really, really quick. Now, it's asking me for my rice. So I'm going to follow the exact recipe that's on here. So it's asking for 320 grams of arborio rice. So I'm popping that in. I'll probably weigh it out a bit more, but. And if anyone's cooking for a family, tell me, and I'll tell you, we'll cover this off in the next second, how to increase the quantity. So this recipe will give you roughly just over half a bowl of food. You go to about 400 grams of rice to get you to a full bowl. I'll explain the recipe. In the recipe, it talks about tips. So it says for every 250 grams of rice, you need, no, for every 100 grams of rice, you need 250 grams of liquid. So that's basically the rule of thumb. So I go about 400. Actually, why don't I do that? So you can see it. I'll go back. So I did 320. So all I've done, you can't see it, I've gone back on the back arrow. And so I've just teared it off. I'm going to take that up to 400, which is what I'd originally measured out. So that's okay. So I'm just going to add the rest of that in. So I'm going to increase my liquid when it comes to that next screen. So 320 grams, asking me for my splash guard. And of course, I've left it inside. Sorry, guys, you chat amongst yourselves. Won't be a moment.
So just reminding you guys what I mentioned at the beginning. I know, Catherine, you said you need a thermo server. So on Thursday night, Janny and I are running an Easy Essentials class. And if you bring along a couple of people to that, that actually qualifies as hosting. So just have a think about that. And I'll put a link to that class in towards the end of this. Thanks, Irene.
Okay. So for those that don't have a TM6, we have a high heat function. Thermomix goes up to 160 degrees. There's a splash guard that goes on top. So essentially, the measuring cup comes off, splash guard goes on, and it actually comes up with a symbol with little squiggles, which basically you just turn the dial, and we're going to cook that rice for 3 minutes. And it stirs for the first 10, 20 seconds, and then it starts to brown. So this point, it's going to actually caramelize my onions. It's going to toast my rice, which is exactly what you want with a really lovely risotto. Okay, so in terms of my third ingredient up there, I've got thyme. So I've got some fresh thyme that I've just plopped on top of my mushrooms. So I do think it's nice to add some herbs, some flavors to your risotto. Definitely boosts it. Again, it doesn't need to be too much, otherwise it can dominate. You want it to be subtle. So I've probably got like a good pinch of thyme there. You could use parsley, but I tend to add those things at the end. So I've actually got some parsley. I actually want this flavor to go in, and mushroom and thyme is just a wonderful combination, guys. Breakfast on toast, you know, some fried off mushrooms. There's a beautiful recipe in there for sauteed mushrooms with some thyme. Absolutely divine. Absolutely worth it. We did it on pizza at our bread making class, which was so good. Okay, right. What else have we got? Questions. So yes, I'm cooking for a family of 3, family of 4. Wonderful. So back to the ratio. So when you are wanting to have a full bowl of food, 400 grams of rice, 1.1 litres of water, that gives me what I call, probably a better term for it, a wet rice. I don't like a gluey, I like my rice to be a little bit loose, which you'll see, which is exactly what I'm going to do today. So I have done the 400. I'm going to put in the 1.1 litre of liquid, and you'll see the consistency at the end of the cook. And that's how I get a full bowl. Now, for those with a family of 3 or 4 boys, which, you know, hungry appetites, if this is not enough, which it may not be, depending on how healthy their appetites are, by all means, remember, this is going to make 2.2 litres of food. Your thermoserver is a 2.6 litre. I buy chicken tenderloins. So when I'm doing the risotto for guests, I buy chicken tenderloins, and I literally just throw them on the grill. So you can literally do it once you put everything on. So once I get to the next step, where it needs to go into its 13 to 15 minute cook, I throw some chicken tenderloins onto a grill or into a pan, brown them on both sides. And again, they don't need to be cooked really, really well, because remember, the residual heat from the risotto is going to continue to cook them through. I chop them up, 3 or 4 pieces, pop them into the bottom of the thermoserver along with the spinach leaves, ready for the rice to go in over the top and stir that through. So it helps to bulk it out. The juices from the chicken is delicious. It's going to add some flavour to that dish. But obviously, if you're vegetarian, there's other options for you. So I love a pumpkin risotto. So with the pumpkin risotto, I actually roast some pumpkin, not just make the risotto obviously with the raw pumpkin, but I roast some pumpkin as well. So that's ready to go. So it asks me for my white wine. I want to show you this because it's really, really important, guys. Now, if I didn't have a clean bowl, you can see a little bit of toasting, I guess browning on the bottom of that bowl. That would be black if I don't wash that bowl from the cheese. So really, really important. This is asking me to add 60 grams of white wine, which I'll do. What it's also asking me to do is to make sure I scrape the bottom of the bowl. So I always, always, always make sure once I finish browning through every step that I scrape the bottom of the bowl just to lift off anything that might be stuck, to ensure that I have an easy clean at the end of this process. So that goes on. I jump that step. I'm going to add my 60 grams of white wine. In fact, I might add a little bit more, might go back to about 100. Because I've increased the rice, increasing liquid. Again with a splash guard, that's going to toast that with the white wine. Another 2 minutes. Okay, questions? I'm sure there's questions. Silence. Okay, all right, so in terms of the recipes, back to what I was saying before, so if you're not doing the meat-based, I guess meat-based dishes, you can definitely do roasting of some vegetables. So whether that's pumpkin, sweet potato, those are things I like to stir through first. Do you rinse the rice first? No, Christine. The whole point of having the starch in the rice is to give you that creamy consistency. That's why I was saying before with the rice, using brown rice, you're obviously going to lose a little bit of that. I guess you could try, I've never done it with the brown rice. The suggestion to, I guess, par cook it first to try and reduce that time. There's nothing stopping you, remember, from the timing perspective, you could increase the cooking time on that brown rice. I just don't necessarily, haven't done it, whether or not it absorbs at the same level as it does with the white rice. So I've got this down pat. I'm not sure. And I guess the flavour wise as well, brown rice is quite dominating. It's quite a different flavour. So I'm not sure that would go with some of these dishes. But certainly if you give it a go, let us know, and then we can share it with the rest of the guys that are here tonight. So now tips with the arancini balls. So these mushroom slices, this is exactly as I bought them. I got a bit lazy to buy them pre-cut. These slices are too big for arancini, so you would probably cut that into, well, probably 6, even 8 pieces, so that you get really lovely balls of the arancini, rather than big slices and chunks as you're trying to bite into an arancini ball and pulling out a big slice of mushroom, and they're probably a little bit too thick. So make sure you dice, almost like dicing an onion if you're going to do the arancini. Okay, so again, it tells you scrape down the bowl, really, really important. And I'm going clockwise, guys. If you're going anti-clockwise, you will damage your spatula. So I'm just stirring and lifting off the base, and just making sure that I can't feel anything catching. Okay.
Irene, there's a question.
Yes.
Are you, because you're going to eat straight away, you use the cheaper rice? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, I guess there's nothing wrong with redoing it, but if you don't like that texture, because it can go a little bit gluey if you're not using a good quality rice, you're better off buying the cannaroli, or you might have a different brand. I mean, what other brands? There was someone mentioned earlier they're buying a higher quality rice. Maybe they want to share what brand they're using.
Can I say something? The Riviana rice works really well. And I found that if I use other, what Irene say, cheaper rice, yes, that's the one, Irene. If you use the
I've
cheaper
not
rice,
had
it gets
issues
very
with
gluggy.
reheating this, but I guess what I'm saying is that if you really want to, if you really want to take it up a level, and there's potentially leftover risotto that you want to turn into arancini balls, you're not going to get away with using that type of rice to have really successful results with your arancini balls. So do go to the expense of buying the Carnaroli or the Violoni Nano so that you maintain that beautiful texture. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so veggie stock paste. So it says 1 to 2 tablespoons of vegetable stock paste. I use heaped tablespoons, and I definitely use 2. Now,
Sorry, Irene. Sorry, there's a question. Can you chop the mushrooms instead of cutting it?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah.
Yes. When you've had a Thermix for a while, you just chuck everything in. Why not? Okay, at this point, I'm adding my porcini, and I'm using a teaspoon. I'll probably double that. I think it's probably, I've got about 2, so it's about a tablespoon. So I had 2 teaspoons in there, so that's about right. Next, my mushrooms. I think this is, it says 250 grams by all means. I've just bought a 200 gram tub, and this is when I add my thyme. Okay, so it says 720 of liquid. Remember we talked about this earlier. I've gone to 400 grams of rice. So I'm going up to my 1.1. Remember your maximum marker. Oops, if you have enough water. Try and use your maximum, don't go above your maximum marker. Okay, precisely 1.105, we're close enough. Okay, lid goes on. So at this point, it asks for the simmering basket. So going back to that question before. So it's asking for me to use the simmering basket at this point and to cook for 13 minutes. And it's doing it at 100 degrees. Now, 13 minutes to me, remember, is that Italian al dente. If that's what you want, then this is exactly how you cook it. I don't like it. Preferably, I remove the basket. I add 2 minutes, so I've gone up to 15 minutes. My measuring cup comes back on. This gives me a wetter rice and the consistency I like. So I'm just going to start that. But I just want to highlight something. Now, if I was making this risotto for guests and I want to make the risotto, have it ready to go for my guests, half an hour in your thermo server is going to give you that extra 2 minutes of cooking time. So if you don't, you can cook it for the 13 minutes, transfer it in here, it'll still be al dente, but by the time they sit down in that half an hour time, it will have absorbed that extra liquid and you're ready to go and serve, and it'll be lovely and ready to go. Is that all food and liquid not above? Yes, no, so I was not above the maximum marker, no, all good. This is taking me back to my TM31 days. It was 380 grams of rice, 1.1 litre of water. Remember, this recipe's embedded in my brain. Okay, so we're going to cook that. We've got 14 minutes to go. Mandy's going to jump onto Cookie Doom. We're going to have a look at some of our recipes that are available for risottos, and there's quite a lot on there. So Mandy, over to you.
Forgot to unmute myself first. All right, so I was just looking at the mixed mushroom saute because you were talking about that. I was having a bit of a squeeze. All right, so I have just made this evening, lucky I made this, I created a little collection of just risotto recipes. So down here, there's actually quite a lot of different risottos. And you know, this is great too, because you've got some baby friendly ones. So I know Verena on here has got a baby not quite ready for this, but at some point in time, you know, you can absolutely make these and just add a few little tweaks to make it a little bit more tasty for you, but still all right for the baby. So Irene, feel free to comment on any of the ones that you see here, but I'll just show you. I think I've got 36 in here, so I won't spend too much time on them, but so just remembering with every recipe on Cookie Do, once you click in, you can have a look down, see what all the ingredients are, and see all the nutritional information and tips and tricks. So it says it's a great, this recipe is a great recipe to use up leftover chicken from your Sunday roast. It comes from the UK. There you go, Sunday roast in the UK. I grew up on Sunday roasts. Sue Calman probably did too. So yeah, so it's always worth looking at those tips and hints, because you never know what's going to be in there. All right, let's have another look. We've got sweet potato, pecan and blue cheese risotto, brie speck. So speck is a sort of German bacon, if you like. Walnut risotto, spinach, chicken and leek risotto. Look at that, amazing color, beetroot, thyme and goat's cheese. Fish ones, this one's a little bit interesting. Carrots and Brussels sprouts. I'm not sure it's be everybody's cup of tea, but asparagus and pippies, clams, an allergy-friendly mushroom risotto. I actually clicked in here because I thought, oh, that's interesting, because things were an allergy, it's allergy week, or it was last week. And honestly, I couldn't see, there's garlic in the stock as well. So there's just a different stock, but I really couldn't see a massive difference between this and another mushroom risotto. So not quite sure.
So they're using nutritional yeast flakes to replace cheese.
Yeah, okay.
Guys, unless you're vegan, so if you are vegan or you're serving someone vegan, you can replace the cheese with nutritional yeast. And your vegan guests will love it. I've done a vegan risotto, and that's because of their flavors they're used to. I love cheeses, and in fact, although I'm only using, I guess, Parmesan cheese in this one, by all means, mixed cheeses. You can use some cheddar in there. You can use mozzarella. You can use blue cheese. I mean, it really does build a depth of flavor in the risotto. Sorry, Mandy, I'll let you go.
No, that's cool. This is you're the one with the knowledge. I'm just showing some things. So that's a provolone, that's another different sort of cheese, isn't it? So you can see that's a stringy sort of cheese in the risotto. There's so many different ones down here, and look at this one. I even found a dessert one, marbled chocolate risotto. So you can have risotto for first and risotto for second course.
It sounds like sounds like a sweet, and yeah, I mean, it's sweetened rice. Why not?
Yeah, that's right. We'll have a quick squeeze. Why not? So marbled chocolate risotto. It doesn't get many star ratings, but dark chocolate, milk, sugar. It's a bit like a rice pudding, really.
Yeah, it's a rice pudding.
Yeah. Oh, an Italian twist on the classic British rice pudding. There you go. What else have we got in here? A pea and mint risotto. The apricot chicken risotto, I've never made that, but I've actually had a lot of people have made that and given it a big thumbs up. So I think it has apricot nectar in it as well. I think it's a tin of apricots. Beetroot risotto.
Susan's saying she loves the beetroot risotto.
Yeah.
So thanks, Susan. I've never done the beetroot risotto.
No,
I'm sure it's
the
delicious.
colour is incredible, isn't it? Absolutely
yeah, it's great
beautiful.
for white contrast. Yeah.
There's the one that Irene's making at the moment. We've got seafood with chorizo, pumpkin risotto with bacon, tomato, springtime, fennel. That looks a bit wet, but anyway, that's
Yeah. So just with the seafood risotto, I strongly recommend that you steam open your clams, your mussels. I can't tell you how many times they've steamed open and they're full of mud or sand. So you need to get all of that out. I don't think you want it in your risotto. So steam them open. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to cook them. Just make sure the shells are open. Give them a really good rinse. And again, if they're already sort of half cooked, it will continue to finish cooking when you pour that hot risotto over the top. Just pop them in your thermoserver. Prawns will need to go into again, unless you've steamed them first, and give them a half cook. You will need to pop the prawns in with the risotto for a good 4 to 5 minutes, just to make sure that they're cooked through.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the shellfish you would steam separately and pop in the thermoserver?
I would definitely, anything that's in a shell, so clams, pippies, mussels, I would definitely steam them open first. So pop your water into your thermo mix, pop them into your aroma, get them steamed open. and just give them a good rinse. I know I see it all the time. They throw them straight into all the cooking shows. They throw them straight into the pot and cook them directly in with all of those juices. I don't like sand. I'm sure you don't like sand or mud. So please steam them open first. Save yourself some really, really horrid, reactions to just don't want to ruin your dish. So that's the way I would do it.
Yeah, it's a bit like with coriander. I mean, I don't know why they seem to wash parsley and everything, but coriander always needs a really good wash. It's a bit gritty.
Yeah, it's always got to be a good soak. Yeah.
All right, what else have we got down here? Oh, there's another seafoody one. Asparagus, risotto with broccolini. That actually looks is nicely presented. Mexican rice. That's another. I don't know what broccoli rabe is, but anyway, lemons. Could have done this one on
Actually,
Sunday.
So we do a dish called it's a Cretan pilaffi. So it's basically our version of a risotto, and it literally is rice cooked in chicken stock, and we finish off the dish with fresh lemon juice and serve it. It's divine. It's one of those comfort dishes that I've grown up with and will continue to have until I'm a little granny. So love it. So I would strongly recommend that. I think that would taste absolutely delicious.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, and we've got risotto with spinach and peas. So there you go. Both the greens that Irene was talking about before, all in one hit. And then risotto verde, which I know is not your favorite.
So the only issue I have with the risotto verde or anything with a pork-based component, so whether you're using ham hock or ham or bacon, is it can dominate the flavour of the risotto or overtake it. So in small doses, we've obviously trained because the risotto verde is on one of our CE dishes, and it's just not a flavour that I just find all I can taste is the I think it's a prosciutto or whatever goes in it. I've never made it again, so it's not one of my favourites. I like to be able to taste individual flavours of everything that's in there, and for me that dominates. But by all means, if you like bacon, just go easy so it doesn't overtake or overpower the flavour. In terms of, I guess, the other things that I learned when I did that cooking class, they use chicken stock, I guess a broth. They've cooked it using chicken bones. They actually soak the bones in water with salt in big tubs, and they pop it in the fridge, so it's obviously food safe. And then they wash the bones. They actually want literally a clear broth. They don't. In Italy, you're cooking for they don't want any sort of cloudiness to their risotto, and it's quite beautiful to see. But who has time for that? It's like we make chicken stock, obviously from bones, which we use in making soups and other things. But at home, you're trying to feed a family of 4. Who's got time to soak bones with salt and wash them and cook them in big vats? But by all means, it's beautiful. I'll find the risotto place. Obviously, everything's closed at the moment in Melbourne, but they are still there. They're in South Bank. I'll find the name of the restaurant. And yeah, he's one of the risotto masters. So it's pretty, it's a real privilege to train or learn from some of these masters, and what makes the premium or the ideal risotto. But at the end of the day, you've got to eat it the way you like it. Because this is how I like to do mine. I like it to have a bit more of a wetter consistency. If you don't, then by all means, within the last few minutes, pop the basket on, get that reduction happening a little bit quicker, so you get a little bit of a thicker consistency. But, in all honesty, I don't think you need to do that. Even if you're leaving it in here for 4, 5, 10, 15 minutes, the longer you leave it, the more it'll absorb that liquid, and then just serve it at the consistency that you really, really like. Just be mindful that if it is undercooked or still al dente, you may not have enough liquid in there, so that it ends up still being al dente but a little bit gluey, because there's just no liquid for it to utilise or absorb.
A couple of questions there. Settings to turn porcini mushrooms to powder.
I just think I just nailed it on speed 9. Anything at high speed, guys, and it doesn't have to be a really fine powder. You just want to mill it down, get yourself a little jar. I've run out now, so I'm just going to mill some in the Thermomix. This half a kilo bag, I've had this for a while. I can tell you, this cost me $60 from Essential Ingredient, which I think is not bad for half a kilo. You can pay $10 for a little 10-gram packet at some of the delis. So do shop around because it is an expensive ingredient. Boone uses shiitake. She can come off speaker if she wants. So really, this comes back to personal flavours. I don't put too much powder in. I don't put in too much thyme. Again, I want to taste the basic flavour of the risotto. But at the end of the day, mixed mushrooms, divine. It's a beautiful, beautiful risotto. I've just used some, the white button, probably the cheapest mushrooms you're going to find. But get your brown mushrooms. If anyone is near Paran Market, there's a beautiful mushroom. There is a beautiful store that sells the most amazing mushrooms. I think there's another one over at South Melbourne Market that does it, and they've got mushrooms that grow all over Australia, and they bring them in. They even bring in fresh porcini if you've got the wallet to buy them. So it really is worthwhile doing a mixed mushroom risotto. I had it's just divine. So, but like I'm just trying to give you a little bit of that flavour from that porcini powder. Can you use fresh? Hang on 1 second. Sorry, I'll go back up to you. I think I've missed some of the questions. Bear with me, guys. Just make sure. Okay. Sorry. I love making my own stock. Great. Mine is always isn't always that colour, though. It depends on the veggies. Yeah, it does depend on the vegetables, how much green you're using. We grow a lot of our own vegetables here, so a lot of our own herbs. So it's definitely helps to have fresh herbs. Mine's always green. Mine's a bit brown at the moment. I guess again depends on what's in it. How long does it keep in the fridge? The stock can last, I think in the book it talks about four months. I do not reduce the salt quantity. So I've used 2 heaped tablespoons in my full bowl. Then there's room or capacity for me to add cheese because otherwise it wouldn't have enough salt. But I also haven't reduced the salt content of my vegetable stock paste. So I know some people make their vegetable stock paste, maybe use half the salt. That may affect the shelf life. So mine lasts. Really, really strict rule for me is I make sure I have really sterile jars when I make it. I've made my last batch, I doubled when I made it. So I ended up with, 2 full ex-Macona jars full of vegetable stock paste. Whenever I use it, I make sure I use a sterile spoon. So I don't double dip, I guess if you want to call it that. And my stock doesn't go off. I don't see any mold around the top of the jar because I make sure that there's no cross-contamination. So really, really important. All right, so let's have a look at this. This is ready to go. Drum roll. It's just going to look really, really wet, but that's okay, and you'll see why. So you'll see it coming out. Pretty much fair bit of liquid. And then you'll start to see the thickness of my rice towards the bottom of the bowl. By the way, I'm using a 2.2 litre thermoserver here, not a 2.6 litre. So hence it's at the top of the bowl with not much room, but that's okay. I also want to show you the bottom of my bowl. There's no burnt. Yeah, really, really important to scrape, scrape, scrape. Wash when it tells you. Should have no burnt bits. Okay. This is what takes this to the next level. So you must put the cheese on now while it's still bubbling. So this is probably that 40 grams. So it's half. Remember I used this is from last week. So it's about the halfway mark. I had about 80 grams that I grated and some fresh butter. Sorry for the calorie counters, but this is what takes it up that notch. Lid goes on and patience. So give it 3 minutes. We'll have a look at it. This is why we're doing this class, so that you can see the consistency. You've seen the method I've used to make it, and we'll come back and have a look at it. So somebody yell out in 3 minutes, because I can probably talk till tomorrow. But anyway, okay. I need a thermoserver. Yes, you do. Get yourself a group. Do a CE. Hang on, where are we up to?
Irene, I just want to quickly let everybody know about the special offer for Victorians. I'm just going to post it in here too.
Sure.
There is, if you go onto the mix shop and you need to use the code, which I've written down somewhere. Where is it? Victoria. Oh, hang on. Helps if I spell it properly. But go onto the mix shop. They've created this collection for Victorians. We can have 15% off when you put that code in, Victoria 15. It might all be in capital letters, but anyway, it's basically that. And we have 15% off until 12 p.m. on Thursday. All right, so they're just trying to look after us.
Yay. Good.
Yes. So you go back, answer some questions.
Well, we're trying to look after you too by having these sessions. So
we are.
Guys, before we leave, we want to hear what else you want to see. So we're here to help you. I keep my stock in the freezer and use it as needed. Absolutely. That will extend it indefinitely. So I don't throw things out of the freezer. Now, well, I should say this, if it's got freezer burn on it, we can talk about the vacuum sealer with you. Freezer burn does nasty things to your food, so please throw it out. Anyway, where are we going? Where ratios of rice, we've done that. Don't rinse the rice, use good quality. Could you chop the mushrooms in there? Yes, you can. Have you ever made barley mushroom risotto? There is a recipe on the recipe community. I haven't made the barley one, but it's got some really good reviews, so by all means. They were already sliced. Okay, keep going. Do you defrost the cheese before grating? No, it's actually, you could literally take it out of the freezer and start eating it. I literally cut it with a knife. It wasn't frozen. It doesn't freeze rock hard because there's quite a bit of fat in it. Okay, what else? Do you reduce the salt in the stock? No, I don't. I don't think food needs salt to bring out the full flavour. I tend to disagree with rice. I think you need to put in the right levels of salt. Otherwise, it can taste a bit bland, but that's a personal choice. What is the texture of the mushroom like in the risotto? Just wondering, is mushrooms not sauteed, just added in with water? They taste exactly the same. So mushrooms, you could cook mushrooms for hours and they retain their texture. They'll just be a little bit softer, but I guess once I stir, I'll show you. It's actually softens as if they were sauteed, so no issue whatsoever from that perspective. Dried shiitake, yes. Different flavour to the risotto, obviously using dried shiitake. Where are we up to? Sorry, just trying to catch up with all of these. Toscanis, yeah, or Toscano, they definitely have porcini powder, but again, I recommend you buy it in bulk. Have I missed anything? No, we're back to bonus. Okay, any other questions? Have I missed anything? Sorry, guys, I'm trying to go back through all the old chat. Shall we have a quick look again?
And just before Irene shows you, so I have put in a link. We are doing an Easy Essentials class on Thursday night at 7:30. So that's Janny and I, and we are. So basically, we're going to show you how to whip cream so it doesn't go too far. We are also going to turn it into butter. Use the buttermilk in bread. Saute onions using the high heat function on the TM6. We're going to make mayonnaise, the cooked mayonnaise, which is a super no-fail mayonnaise. It's fantastic, and coleslaw. So it's about a 45-minute class, and you're very welcome to register. Please use that link I've popped there in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to grab a plate so you can see the consistency. But as I was saying earlier, don't stress if you feel this is a little bit too wet. Just an extra 2-3 minutes in the thermoserver. Just keep the lid on. Remember, the thermoserver is going to keep it nice and hot for a couple of hours. I don't know if you can really tell. So it's quite loose. I'm going to go the other way, yeah? But it's not runny. So there was somebody saying that theirs was quite watery. They didn't like that consistency. This is the way I like to eat it. I don't like it when it's too dry. Now, in terms of the mushrooms, they're soft enough to, I guess, wilt. I'm sure if you can see that for the person that was asking about the mushrooms earlier as well. Yeah. So give it a go. I know I used to get mixed responses from people saying, I'm not sure about the risotto. I do think the recipe that's on there needs those extra things like a herb, like the porcini powder to take it to that next level. By all means, if you're not vegetarian, chicken stock is fantastic, and you can definitely make the chicken stock paste to take it to that next level.
All right, so I'm gonna, I don't want you to leave yet because as Irene said, we're gonna ask you what else you want to see so we can help you.
Yes, please.
But before we do, I just wanna thank Irene so much for spending this time and teaching us all, arancini. Okay, I'll stop saying thank you.
Thanks, oh, no. So there was another question. How do you make arancini from this? Great question. So I'm gonna have my bowl. This is my dinner tonight. So I'm gonna have my rice. This is going to go straight into my fridge. So it's going to firm up and absorb the balance of that liquid. There is an arancini ball recipe. Mandy, do you want to pull one up just to show them? It's literally the risotto recipe, allowing that to go cold. And I do that by popping it in the fridge. You can do things like sliced mozzarella in the center or another piece of cheese. You can add a sauce, I guess, or something else through the middle of it. That's great. So you just pull up, maybe doesn't really matter. Just scroll down. I can't see the, sorry, go back up a bit. It just went off too quickly. Just choose that first recipe. It doesn't really matter. So scroll down.
Oh.
So it shows you the rice. It's basically exactly what we've got here. This is just, obviously it's got saffron and other things in it, but you're basically making the risotto. You're allowing that to go cold. This has got a red pesto filling. And then there's a batter of water, egg, flour, which you basically then roll them in and then you fry them. So that's exactly what I'm going to do with this leftover risotto. So whatever I don't have today, I'm going to pop it in the fridge, let it go cold. You can obviously take it for lunch tomorrow for work. Or in my case, turn them into arancini balls. So follow the arancini ball recipe. You don't have to worry about that, I think that the pesto sauce. You could just use another piece of cheese through the middle, roll it into a ball and then fry them. Once you've fried them and they're cool enough, pop them into the freezer and then you pop them into the oven for about, depending on the size, 20 to 30 minutes from frozen. And have your arancini balls and serve them. Delicious. So really, there's no waste with the risotto. Don't throw it out, guys. Now, my only challenge, because I haven't sliced the mushrooms, I'm going to have big pieces of mushroom as I eat them. So preferably cut your vegetables a little bit smaller. Just going back really quickly with the, there's a beautiful recipe for a pumpkin. So I use the same recipe that I've got here. I put some pumpkin into the bottom of the bowl, chop it up and cook it, basically make a pumpkin risotto. But I roast that pumpkin whilst it's doing the rest of this, get some gorgeous color, and then I fold that through, just like I was talking about with the chicken. So guys, don't be afraid to try flavors. Get in touch with your consultant if you want some tips. I do asparagus. I don't throw out the bottom of that asparagus, guys. Chop it really, really fine and use it in the base. Oh, Amanda's giving me the thumbs up. Don't throw them out. I know you can't chew on them, but they are fantastic. You just blitz them and use them in the bottom of your risotto to give you that really gorgeous flavor. Anyone who eats prawns, guys, don't throw the heads out. Fry them off in some oil, make some prawn oil. Beautiful to add to a seafood risotto. Just that gives you that seafood flavor that you want through that risotto, particularly if you're steaming open and you're just putting in some mussels. You haven't given the risotto a chance to cook in that flavor. So use some prawn oil. So there's so many things you can do. Even something as simple as an anchovy, minced up and used up through that process when you're frying off the onions, going to give you that umami flavor that you're looking for. Does prawn oil store at room temp? It sure does.
Fantastic. So, so thank you, Irene.
You're really welcome.
Your knowledge is incredible, and this all came about because we had a team meeting last Monday, and we got the little masterclass of the team, and we're going, oh my goodness, there's so much to share here with everybody else. So thank you guys for coming. And just before, I'm going to stop recording right now.